yes, there was a lot of change last year. I think one of the constant messages that we were getting is, yes, we can see the point in this change, but be mindful of us trying to transition during that change. I guess the added factor of the review of the banking and insurance sector by the FMA and the Reserve Bank threw another spanner in the works in terms of change in the sector. But look, I think if you look at what happened across the Tasman, that was absolutely necessary. And I think some of the theme of what might come through some of your sessions today is if you move early on those kinds of issues around conduct, then you won't get yourselves into a position that they had across the Tasman. So that's certainly why we made sure that we continued with the changes or the additional work stream around conduct. One of the things that I think we have heard loud and clear is that because there are many layers of change, and I think necessary change, we've got to be mindful of timeframes because of the pressure that may be putting on. We've certainly heard it from the banking sector, that it might be putting on staff and internal changes. So we're mindful of that, especially with, I think you guys are calling it COFI, Conduct of Financial Institutions, right. Or coffee, sorry. So we're mindful of that along the way, because while we want these changes to come in, we're also mindful of the kind of heavy workload that we've got through the FSLA and other changes, triple CFA, that are also there. So yes, last year was a big year. If I think about what I want to achieve this year, I think making sure we finish off and tidy up FSLA, and we're very close to that. If we can get the coffee changes through the House, I think that would tie that up. I think it's an important piece of work for us to finish. There are some bits and bobs around the triple CFA to change, but you know, if you think about all of those changes in its entirety, it's quite a lot. So, you know, a journalist joked to me as we arrived about what announcement have you got to make, and I said the room doesn't want another announcement. They just want to make sure they can get through everything that's already on their plate. Look, I think both the FSLA and the triple CFA, the changes in the conduct, give a framework where there's accountability for the providers of either the product or the advice. We are lucky here in New Zealand. We weren't in this state that the Australians were in, but I think there was a bit of contagion of that. And I guess because I think of New Zealanders' general attitude towards not getting advice and the many reasons that might lie behind that, giving them the ability to see that there's a framework of standards of competency, of customer treatment, I think are really important. Because I think there are a hell of a lot of New Zealanders that would like to be in a much more resilient financial position and have the means to do it. But if for one or other reason they don't do that and get a good, sound financial advice, then I don't think as a government we're doing as good a job to make them resilient for when a rainy day comes, and we all know that rainy days come. But there's business opportunity in there as well. And I think that's what both the FSLA and the work in the conduct space will end up eventually doing, because and it will take time. I think consumers will say, actually, I will go get that advice, because we know that if someone's offering that advice, they're licensed, they're accountable, and the products, they have to be suitable for me. I don't mind being very personal about this, actually. My dad died at 63, far too young, and didn't have any kind of life insurance or anything like that, and I don't want to do that for my family. And I'm lucky enough to have the means to be able to take out insurance and look after my family. But because financial advice is usually a skill that's kind of handed down to generation, where do you go? Thankfully, my partner was kind of an insurance freak, and she said, no, well, you've got to, if this is a worry for you, then make sure you go and see this person about getting life insurance. Now, that might seem like common sense in this room, but especially to the most vulnerable consumers in New Zealand, they don't have a history of doing those kinds of things. So that's why I think even if it's saying, someone who's on a minimum wage saying, look, I know it's tough for you to put money into KiwiSaver, but think about the long term and do that, then we're making that family more resilient. Or a young person who's just getting into work, you might want to use that money going out on a Friday or Saturday night, but actually, if you think about it, if you want to buy a house in 5 years' time, you might be able to do a bit of everything and have a deposit for a house. And it's just that first step for me. In a very simple sense, how do we help the consumers make a wise and informed decision to make themselves better off? Now, I wish I had known these things when I was starting out in the workforce. I got a little bit of good advice, but it's and if someone asked me, what do you want to do if you get the pleasure of being the Commerce Minister in the next term, and I want to talk about financial literacy. Because we can set up the system for people to have trust, but if they're not going to take the step to go out and get the advice or do something simple for themselves because they're not thinking about these things on a regular basis, then we're not doing a good enough job. And that's one of the things that I took into account when we appointed Jane Wrightson to the Retirement Commissioner's role as well. I said, we want to have these really simple discussions with Kiwis about making sure that they can manage their lives and manage their money.